you for joining us. Today we're going to talk about how to handle calendars that are not perfectly aligned. Des, any recommendations or tips or points that we could take away on how to handle that?
Well, the first thing I would do is go onto the Enlightium Academy website and print out the calendar. It's a fantastic resource. It shows you what's coming up and, compare it with your school calendar. It might sound a little silly to print it out. However, the start dates might not be the same. Maybe you want to start after Labor Day, or maybe you are in a state that starts really early and you want to start at the beginning of August.
Yes.
In those cases, your breaks aren't going to line up perfectly, and it's good to just sit them down and compare them. Where are things at? I will say an important thing is the end of quarters. Your end of quarter might be different than Enlightium Academy's end of quarter.
Yes.
And we have what we call blackout dates on the calendar. They're black. That's why we call them blackout dates. And it's because Ignitia is closed. That means your students, even though they might be meeting in person at your school, they're not gonna be able to get into their Ignitia accounts.
Right.
And the reason that matters is you don't wanna be caught cold-footed with nothing for you students to do.
Right.
So.
And those blackout dates happen 3 times a year, right? At first quarter, semester, and at the third quarter mark. And so they're usually blacked out for 4 or 5 days, but that covers the weekend. We really try to do those blackouts. There might be 2 or 3 school days on there. So the things that we recommend to do on those blackout dates is to do something like community service with your group. The other things that we recommend in particular, keeping track of where your students are in their classes, and so if they're behind or even just on target, but print out the next project, whether that's an essay in a class or a lab science in a class. That's a great time during those blackouts, and we do have the option in Ignitia that you can print the lesson and the prompts on there, have that all ready for those blackout dates, and if you still choose to meet during those times, then students have something to work on there. So we really feel like that even though it may seem like a pain and not that easy, we found that the schools who planned ahead, that it seems to work quite seamlessly on there.
That's great. And if you do start near the end of August like we do, you can also just adopt the Enlightium calendar. If you don't want to have to worry about that, you don't have to meet during the quarter breaks. If this is something you're like, I don't really want this stress, you can adopt our calendar. That's A-okay.
It is. We've had a few co-op schools or alliance partner schools that also wanted a different semester break. And so while it may not be the easiest on both sides, it isn't. It is doable. And that means, as we probably know, a lot of times semesters end right before Christmas or in January. So if you are really want to follow your community that has the semester break at Christmas, we can do that here also. And we'll start them and their semester will end. Blackout dates will stay the same, but the same advice is to print out the projects or do community service like that. And the other one that we get quite a bit, Desiree, that you can help talk about is international schools or international co-ops that want to be with us that are on a whole different calendar. So how do we handle that?
That's a great question. It's not uncommon for international schools, especially if they're in the Southern Hemisphere, to have their breaks kind of flip-flop from ours. So if you're in a different country and you're on a different schedule because it makes sense, maybe you're starting your school year in January instead of starting in August. If that's the case for you, communicate with us. We do have the option to do an international term. And the reason that's important is because it impacts your billing cycle. It impacts your report card cycle and everything. So communicate that up front. Give us your calendar.
Yes.
So you'll have our calendar, we'll have your calendar. We can align them and no, the blackout dates aren't going to change with when your kids can get into Ignitia. However, we can align your start date and your end date with your school year. So your students aren't going to feel like they're 4 months behind if they start in January. They're going to feel like their first day of school is the first day of school for them, which just makes the whole school year flow really smoothly.
It does, it does. And what is common for a lot of those is they take 2 months off. A lot of times they'll start in January and then go through the next December. But what we don't allow is for a school to go 12 months out of the year. If it is an international year, we still have breaks in there that would mimic 2 months of summer off for the US-based school system on there too. So again, sometimes that's in April. They'll take the whole month of April off is common, and then the whole month of December. So very doable, but within some parameters of what a school year 180 days on there looks like. So
yeah, that's really good.
Definitely willing to work with you.
So the point is, communicate with us. We will work with you in your schedule. And thank you for joining in on our Alliance video series on how to manage your calendar.